Hello everybody, Ellie here, and today we're going to talk about attack eyebrows. We know that the 12th Doctor is a good man and enjoys punching the occasional wall, but there are loads more interesting elements of the character and his era that will no doubt tickle your pudding brain. Here are 10 things you didn't know about the 12th Doctor. Number 10. The colour of his kidneys. Famously, the 12th Doctor's first thoughts were his distaste for the colour of his kidneys, which begs the rather unusual question of whether Time Lords can change the colour of their organs during regeneration. I mean, they can change everything else, so why not? While there's never been a definitive answer over the Time Lords' colour-changing internals, former showrunner Stephen Moffat did reveal the colour that had so greatly offended the 12th Doctor during the final moments of the Time of the Doctor. In his Ask the Showrunner column back in Doctor Who magazine issue 477, Moffat responded that the 12th Doctor's kidneys were coloured, quote, "Froon. This is an entirely new colour, which only the Doctor can see." Moffat obviously had his tongue firmly in his cheek while typing this. But it's a fun idea that the Doctor is such an advanced being that he can see colours that us mere mortals can't even comprehend. However, Stephen Moffat doesn't reveal how the Doctor knew that his kidneys were Froon coloured. Just another mystery of the Time Lord regenerative process. Number 9. Peter Capaldi's actual skull was used in Heaven Sent. One of the many striking images in the classic 12th Doctor episode Heaven Sent is the lake full of skulls. It's a grim image, hinting at the impossibly large number of times the Doctor has endured the confession dial loop. However, it takes on an even grimmer tone when you realise that those skulls are actually Peter Capaldi's. Millennium FX producer Kate Walsh revealed this morbid detail after the episode went out. Having previously taken a cast of Peter Capaldi's head to create the ghost version of the Doctor in Under the Lake and Before the Flood, they were able to use that cast to recreate the skulls in Heaven Sent. In rather grim-sounding detail, as Walsh explained, quote, "We cast a version of Peter's face out in clay, and following the contours of his distinctive bone structure, pared the form back to reveal what we imagine may be Peter's own skull." In collaboration with director Rachel Talalay and producer Peter Bennett, Walsh and her team were keen to preserve the secrets of the confession dial by not making Capaldi's skull too obvious, as if any of us would have immediately recognised his skull. Number 8. Deep Breath aired on Volcano Day. The 12th Doctor's debut story, Deep Breath, aired on the 23rd of August 2014 and featured a scene in which the Doctor pondered his strangely familiar new face. Fans speculated whether or not the show would provide an explanation for why the Doctor and Caecilius looked alike. Which is odd, because we all just accepted that the 6th Doctor chose the face of the gun-toting guard who tried to kill him during Arc of Infinity, right? But of course, we did get an explanation, and it was later revealed that the 12th Doctor chose the face of Caecilius to remind him to always save people, regardless of the apparent impossibility of doing so. The 10th Doctor and Donna Noble first met Caecilius on the day before Mount Vesuvius erupted and destroyed the city of Pompeii. That eruption took place on the 24th of August 79 AD, meaning that we met the 12th Doctor in Deep Breath on the very same date that the 10th Doctor met Caecilius. It's highly unlikely that those in charge of putting together the BBC One schedules were aware of this fact. However, it's a rather brilliant timey-wimey coincidence that further ties together the stories of the 12th Doctor and Caecilius. Number 7. His regeneration speech was inspired by Peter Capaldi. The 12th Doctor's final speech, imploring his future self to laugh hard, run fast, be kind, featured a moment inspired by Peter Capaldi himself. Months earlier, during promotion for his final series, Capaldi did various press interviews during which he spoke thoughtfully about the Doctor's name. In one of them, he said, quote, "I don't think human beings can even really say his name, but I think they might be able to hear it. It's like a frequency. If the stars are in the right place and your heart is in the right place, then you'll hear it." Sound familiar? That's because Stephen Moffat directly incorporated this into the 12th Doctor's final speech in Twice Upon a Time. Moffat later confirmed that he'd lifted this line from Capaldi during an interview with Crystal D on Doctor Who The Fan Show. It's a beautiful sentiment that flows perfectly with the enchanting tone Moffat brought to Doctor Who, capping off a journey that started all the way back with Matt Smith's Doctor in 2010. Interestingly, Moffat also implied that he worked in collaboration with Capaldi to write the final speech, ensuring that the actor had, quote, the space to do everything that he wanted to do in that scene. Undoubtedly the right move when working with a stalwart like Capaldi. Number 6. He's wearing Peter Capaldi's wedding ring. Throughout his era, the 12th Doctor wears a band on his ring finger. There's no story reason given for this item of jewellery, though Paul Cornell's novelisation of Twice Upon a Time stated that it's his wedding ring from his marriage to River Song, the best character. However, the real reason that the 12th Doctor wears a ring is because it's Peter Capaldi's actual wedding ring from his marriage to actor and producer Elaine Collins, albeit with a sci-fi upgrade. Capaldi didn't want to take off his wedding ring for the role, and so asked if he could incorporate it into the 12th Doctor's costume. The idea was that a second ring would be made with a disc joining Capaldi's wedding ring with a new piece of jewellery. This second ring, the one with the green stone, was made by Rowley's Jewellers in Penarth. Touchingly, the son of one of the jewellery makers conceived of the origins of the Doctor's ring, explaining that, quote, "This timeless gold ring contains green amber collected by the Doctor on the planet Raxacoricofallapatorius. It reminds him of all the wars he has won, but also all the lives he has taken. This thought lurks on his conscience to this day." The 12th Doctor versus the Slitheen? Now there's an episode we would have liked to have seen. Number 5. He's the joint oldest Doctor. There's a gag in Twice Upon a Time in which the first Doctor eyes up his future incarnation and muses, "Well, I assumed I'd get younger," to which the 12th Doctor replies, "I am younger." It's a joke about how when Peter Capaldi first appeared as the 12th Doctor in The Day of the Doctor, he was only 3 months younger than William Hartnell had been when he played the first Doctor back in 1963. Both Capaldi and Hartnell were 55 at the time they first assumed the role, with Hartnell being born on the 8th of January 1908, and Capaldi being born on the 14th of April 1958. Their similar ages brilliantly puncture the myth that William Hartnell was some ancient old man when he was cast in the role, though giving him a long white wig didn't really aid this perception. Case in point, David Bradley was 75 when he appeared as the first Doctor in Twice Upon a Time, adding an extra dimension to the joke about who was actually younger. In addition, both Jon Pertwee and David Tennant were only a few years younger than Capaldi and Hartnell when they played the 3rd and 14th Doctors, respectively. And yes, realising that David Tennant is now the same age as the first Doctor really is quite unnerving. Number 4. He was the first modern Doctor to offer jelly babies. Most commonly associated with the 4th Doctor, jelly babies have been carried by a handful of other incarnations too. The 2nd, 6th, 7th and 8th Doctors have all carried the popular confection on their person over the years. But when the show came back in 2005, jelly babies appeared to be consigned to the past, as the Master was the only Time Lord to be seen eating them. Peter Capaldi changed that in Mummy on the Orient Express, when he offered Professor Morehouse a jelly baby from a fancy cigarette case. There's no reference to the case of jelly babies in the script for the episode, which suggests that this was an off-the-cuff addition, possibly even a cheeky ad-lib by Peter Capaldi. Writer Jamie Matheson confirmed this in a Reddit Ask Me Anything following the broadcast of Mummy on the Orient Express. Responding to a question about Peter Capaldi's input on scripts, Matheson said, quote, "The jelly babies were his idea, which I think we can all agree was genius." Of course it was Peter Capaldi, longtime fan of the show, who suggested such a brilliant and memorable callback to classic Who. We wouldn't be surprised if he'd been carrying that jelly baby case around just waiting for the right opportunity. Number 3. Why his hair got longer. As Peter Capaldi was such a fan of Jon Pertwee, it's tempting to view his hair as a tribute to the 3rd Doctor. Like Capaldi, Pertwee's hair also started quite short before becoming bigger and bigger as his era wore on. However, Capaldi's decision to grow out his hair was not a deliberate tribute to Jon Pertwee. When asked about his hair at New York Comic Con in 2017, Capaldi explained that he'd always wanted to have longer hair as the Doctor. But in his first series, he had been convinced to wear it shorter, presumably to emphasise the more hardened, sharper characterisation of the 12th Doctor. But as his era continued, Capaldi began letting it grow out a bit more. As he explained, quote, "I would start pulling at it and not get it cut quite as regularly as I should. I quite liked it getting longer, so by the time we got to the end, by the time we got to the next season, I was brave enough to say, let's keep it." He even joked that if he'd returned for a 4th series, viewers wouldn't have been able to see his face under the expanse of silvery locks. I wonder if the TARDIS has a hairdressing room tucked away somewhere. There's one on the Enterprise D. Number 2. He tried to get Peter Jackson to direct Doctor Who. The 12th Doctor era is notable for the fact that two movie directors, Ben Wheatley and Rachel Talalay, were hired to direct some of Peter Capaldi's most important episodes. And that's not all. The Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson also stated his interest in directing an episode from as far back as 2012. Jackson's love of Doctor Who extended to casting Sylvester McCoy in the Hobbit movies and appearing in the 50th anniversary sketch comedy The Five-ish Doctors. For years, both Jackson and Stephen Moffat were asked about whether the dream partnership between Doctor Who and Lord of the Rings would ever happen, but to no avail. And then out of nowhere, Peter Jackson released a short, scrappy spoof video in 2015 in which the 12th Doctor turned up at his house in New Zealand to get him to sign a contract with the BBC. While Jackson isn't the greatest actor in the world, it's a lot of fun to see Peter Capaldi running around the director's home before being chased out by a Dalek. Jackson never did sign that contract with the BBC, but in 2018 he reaffirmed his desire to direct Doctor Who. Maybe Peter Capaldi or Sylvester McCoy could, hand over his contact details to Russell T Davies? Number 1. He had a much bigger role in the Time War than you think. In a truly iconic moment, Peter Capaldi first appeared as the 12th Doctor via a brief shot of his attack eyebrows in The Day of the Doctor. In his 2018 novelisation of the story, Stephen Moffat elaborated on just what the 12th Doctor was up to during that fateful day. In the book, after the Doctors have completed their calculations to shift Gallifrey to safety, the 12th Doctor shows up in the Time Lord's war room. He's there to assure the General that he's enlisted his past and future incarnations to deal with the seismic shifts caused by moving a whole planet into a new dimension. There then follows a thrilling sequence in which the Doctors save the people of Gallifrey from earthquakes, tidal waves, and tornadoes. Interestingly, back in 2017, there was a rumour doing the rounds that Peter Capaldi and Stephen Moffat's final Doctor Who episode would depict those very events, with David Bradley's first Doctor also along for the ride. Obviously, this never happened, minus the first Doctor part. But it's interesting to ponder if someone maybe got their wires all wibbly-wobbly between Stephen Moffat's script for Twice Upon a Time and his novelisation of The Day of the Doctor. Either way, it's satisfying to know that 12 had a bigger role in Gallifrey's salvation than we first realised. And that concludes our list, but we have plenty of other videos on other Doctors, so why not check out 10 things you didn't know about the 10th Doctor, or 10 things you didn't know about the 9th Doctor, and maybe keep your eyes peeled for other Doctors to come too. In the meantime, I've been Ellie for Who Culture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.